I want to talk to you now about what Bob Mueller thinks and knows. We got this rare glimpse today into his Russia probe, revealing what he and his investigators seized in that Roger Stone raid. They described complex and voluminous materials, and we don't hear a lot from Mueller about what he's doing while he's doing it. You know there's no leaks. You know he hasn't done an interview since the appointment. He speaks to the actions. There was another new revelation that is a type of action. Mueller filing this court action saying that Russian hackers were using his discovery to run a disinformation campaign on social media. And tonight, we have more than just those things that have been breaking. I have something to show you about this whole issue of the way the Russians continue, in ways big and sometimes a little small, to try to abuse and exploit social media and cyber. What we've done here that I'm about to show you, and we're kind of excited about it, is we combed through decades of things that Mueller has said and done in various forums, governmental, investigative, journalistic, that give clues into his thinking as he continues to play out this complex situation, what he does behind the scenes, what he thinks of Russia and cybercrimes, which have been, it turns out, on his radar, he said, for over a decade.
Today we are part of a never-ending news cycle, one that spans the globe. And when a story is filed, that one story posted on the internet may be picked up around the world. But unfortunately, criminals and terrorists are using the same technology to their advantage. I think we all understand that there are a number of countries out there who want to steal our secrets: Russia, Iran, China.
Name-checking Russia in that category of, quote, criminals and terrorists, two different ways to abuse American law, to try to take internet technology, to take business secrets perhaps, or, as we've seen, disrupt our actual process. We also found footage of what was then former FBI Director Mueller talking about Russian spies trying to penetrate U.S. institutions.
The counterintelligence threat to the United States continues to persist, as we saw with the recent arrest of a network of Russian spies. Foreign adversaries, however, do not rely exclusively on such traditional agent networks. They increasingly employ non-traditional collectors, such as students, visiting scientists, businessmen, as well as cyber-based tools to target and penetrate United States institutions.
He speaks in a careful way, but what he's referring to, those non-traditional collectors, is the idea that the Russians would send people to trick or fool or take advantage of Americans. That's something Carter Page says happened to him. He just says he didn't realize they were spies at the time. The overall translation, Mueller knows how these types of Russian plots work, and he's been focused on the cyber warfare for decades.
The increase of cyber as a mechanism for conducting, the internet mechanism for conducting all sorts of crimes, but also it being a highway to extracting our most sensitive secrets. Cyber criminals lurk on our networks, stealing information for sale to the highest bidder, and computer intrusions and network attacks are becoming more commonplace, more dangerous, and more sophisticated. We live in a time of diverse and persistent threats from terrorists, spies, and cyber criminals. Cyber criminals have become increasingly adept at exploiting weaknesses in our computer networks. I believe that the cyber threat may well eclipse the terrorist threat in years to come.
Wow. We don't know if Rod Rosenstein knew exactly how all over this stuff Mueller was, but that wasn't a popular thing to just say cyber could be worse than terror, than 9/11. Now, of course, Mueller is special counsel, and what is he doing? He's investigating the Russian hacking of DNC and all the release of emails, which flooded every social media platform with what turned out to be a lot of information and disinformation. So here's Mueller now talking about a strategy of finding those threats and how you deal with them.
Hockey great Wayne Gretzky was once asked how he consistently managed to be at the right place on the ice at the right time. And he said that while some players skate to where the puck has been, he skates to where the puck will be. And the same is true for those of us in the FBI. We need to know where the threat is moving, and we need to get there first.
That's what he says he did this week, because the new filing shows they were watching wherever the hockey puck was headed, and the Russians trying to misuse our legal system with those cyber tricks. Now, Mueller has 37 indictments or guilty pleas so far. Some say, well, it's not fast enough. Last night, the president, quote, I think after almost 2 years, it certainly should be wrapping up. But Mueller has shown his view of cyber that he was so uniquely prepared for has never had artificial deadlines. He says he focuses on getting to the bottom of it.
Targeted intelligence gathering takes time, requires patience, precision, and dedication. It is a labor-intensive process that often does not provide a complete picture quickly, but is the core of the understanding. It is the core of understanding the threats to the homeland. I will pull no punches in terms of where that investigation would lead, and we would go down any path that would lead to evidence on individuals, organizations, or otherwise.
That's Bob Mueller speaking under oath, by the way, about pulling no punches, going down any path, 6 years ago when describing his investigative approach. Now today, because of the nature of the special counsel role, unlike being an FBI director, he's not testifying in real time. And while Trump continues to dial up these attacks on Mueller and now Roger Stone is impugning his FBI agents, the real question here, the big question, is whether Bob Mueller is trying to oversee something that wherever it goes and wherever it ends, it will match what he has long said is his core obligation as a constitutional officer of the United States. He says it's all about integrity.
If you are not honest, your reputation will suffer, and once lost, a good reputation can never be regained. As the saying goes, if you have integrity, nothing else matters, and if you don't have integrity, nothing else matters.
We welcome Malcolm Nance, an MSNBC terror analyst and the author of The Plot to Destroy Democracy. What runs through your mind as you see some of Bob Mueller's past warnings and analysis of this, given that in the past 2 years we hear nothing from him?
Well, I think it's brilliant that you put that that display of his quotes together, because what it shows you is, and this is for people who certainly over the last couple of years have been feeling disheartened because they haven't seen the speed that Robert Mueller and the special counsel have been working with. But if you look at the prosecutions that he's done, which are all based on this cyber warfare disinformation operation, he has been wildly successful, and he hasn't even gotten to the bottom of the entire conspiracy as it exists. Robert Mueller knows what he's doing. He has been, as director of the FBI for 3 presidents, he has already known, he has always been at the cutting edge of how our opponents have been coming at this nation, particularly using counterintelligence.
And it's fascinating as well because you mentioned counterintelligence. The legal side gets a lot of attention, and it's the part we can see more of because people do get indicted and go to court. The counterintel side necessarily is not as visible, and yet, as you say, as FBI director, this is a person with the perfect seeming Venn diagram overlap between the two. Let me play for you a little more of what we pulled up, because he talked about how at first it's very hard to know with cyber who's behind what. Take a look.
At the outset of an attack, you do not know whether it is a foreign country, foreign government, somebody affiliated with a foreign government, a group of hackers, or the high school student across the way.
How does that apply?
Well, it's another good example of how he is very aware and has been very aware of how these operations play out. At the beginning of this, you recall the very first debate everyone was having, and when the media was pouring all over Hillary Clinton's emails and John Podesta's emails, is that many people were ignoring what was the vector on this attack. What was the point of origin? Why would we assume that it came from Russia? What would be the benefit for it for Russia? And it took a couple of months for people to understand that it was a direct attack on the United States electoral process in order to engineer an outcome, putting one candidate over the other. If Robert Mueller's operating philosophy is correct, that you don't know who it is in the initial phase of the attack, but you have to determine that quickly. That was already known by the time that the special counsel had started his operations. So he would sort of jumped ahead by a light year on the investigative process, which is why he unspooled very quickly these administration people who were having contact with foreign intelligence officers, foreign diplomats, foreign contacts in the old school counterintelligence operation, like you played in one clip, where he said, you know, people that you call non-traditional agents and assets would make contact with American citizens and then manipulate them. This campaign from the very beginning, this investigation has always been a spy hunt. It has always been people associated with foreign intelligence agencies and governments and how they infiltrated the United States government. The major component is cyber, but it's also a hybrid, as you said earlier, going back to those traditional spycraft methods, which obviously have made headway.
Very interesting stuff. Malcolm Nance, as always, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.